Hi everyone, welcome back to Splash Page. Today we're going to be talking about Silo's fourth episode entitled Truth. This week's episode takes place in two different times. The first is directly after the events of episode 3's shocking and dramatic ending, and then it also jumps back about 20 years into Juliet's past. We're going to go through Juliet's background first and then come back to the modern storyline. As always, I have not read the source material for this story, so everything I talk about is show only, and the theories I come up with are just that, theories. We open on Juliet, who's a child, maybe around 13, and they're giving oxygen to another young child. This is Jacob, who was Juliet's younger brother. Her mother Hannah is also present, and as we guessed last week, we thought the rift between Juliet and her father stemmed from her mother's death. We didn't guess anything about a brother, but it looks like they had both passed away not too long after this scene, considering the next time we're in Juliet's past, we learn how Juliet, a doctor's daughter, became a mechanic. With both her mother and Jacob gone, her father tries to talk her into recycling their belongings. She then takes the belongings to the recycling by herself, and there are a few comments made about how she shouldn't be doing this alone and that she's too young. We then see her cooking dinner and attempting to fix her mother's broken chair. This is the first indication that she's handy and good at fixing things, but it also shows that her father isn't there to support her during these challenging times. So Juliet kind of runs away from her father and goes to the Down Deep to meet Martha. Juliet has a note and claims that her father wants her to be a mechanic and work in the Down Deep and potentially even shadow Martha. Hannah, Juliet's mother, seems to have some kind of connection to the Down Deep. Maybe she was born there, maybe there's another reason, but Martha knows who she is. While resistant at first, Martha places Juliet on the scavenger team to start learning how things work down in mechanical. A few days or weeks later, Juliet gets a call back to Martha's shop, and her dad is there. Martha says she instantly knew the letter was a forgery, and she contacted Juliet's father. He asks if she's happy, and she admits that being down there, she's so busy she doesn't have the opportunity to think about sad things, basically talking about her mother and her brother. Martha tells her that she can stay down there and shadow Knox. Her dad allows her to stay in mechanical, and this might have been the last time they saw each other. It seems that her father was also really devastated by the loss of his wife and his son, and that he really wasn't able to take care of Juliet because of that. However, we never find out what happened to Juliet's mother and brother. We just assume that they died. Is it possible that they asked to go outside? Is it possible that due to something the father did, it put them in a precarious position that ended up leading to their death? We don't know, but I'm sure we will find out in future episodes. Back in the present day, Juliet goes to the mayor's office and sees that the mayor is dead on the floor. Marnes, Robert Sims, and Bernard are all talking about what happened and what comes next. Marnes thinks rat poison was dropped into their bottles when they were in the deputy's station. I did call out in my last video each spot that Marnes and the mayor stopped and whether or not they had their water bottles. And I do remember in this scene, I did call out that they do not have their water bottles. Marnes thinks they might have both been the target for this poisoning. He mentions that one of the water bottles, the one that he was going to drink out of, had a leak, and therefore he wasn't able to drink out of it. Bernard invited Juliette Nicholas to join them while this is all happening, even though she's not sworn in yet, because she might as well experience this and try to figure out what's going on. We also learn that Bernard has now been temporarily placed as mayor until there could be an election. Marnes is not happy to see Juliet, and he references several times that she isn't sworn in, but he also made it pretty clear to the mayor when she was still alive that he doesn't like her selection. You could tell that Marnes is just so incredibly distraught that nothing would have rubbed him the right way at this moment. There's a man in the cafe staring at the screen, and you can actually see stars in the sky from the screen, which is interesting. We get introduced to him later, but in this scene, the camera lingers on him way too long for this to just be an extra. And you can also see potentially he's writing something down, taking notes, drawing something. Juliet then goes to the sheriff's office and is placed in Holston's old office. She meets Sandy, a woman that works in the sheriff's office who absolutely loved Holston. And there appears to be some level of classism happening here between the Down Deep and wherever they are now. Sandy is not a big fan of Juliet. She even says some disgusting things about she's not sure what people eat in the down deep and just really hateful stuff. Juliet asks for the Wilkins files, but it's nowhere to be found, and Sandy isn't helping. She goes into Holding 3, which is where Holston and his wife were held. She then checks out her new digs, which is Holston's old living quarters, and she goes through a bunch of things. We learn more about the recycling as there's a note in Holston's old apartment saying something along the lines of she doesn't want something in there, just recycle it. She then flirts with the vent a little bit and gets it to turn on and hears something rattling around in there, but she doesn't open it. And we know since the first episode that Holston hid something in there. The vent is making a lot of noise, which when Bernard comes in, he makes a comment about it. Bernard then proceeds to swear in Juliet as the sheriff. Juliet knows Bernard also accused her of stealing the heat tape. She says she didn't steal it, she appropriated it because they needed it down there. Bernard is also honest about not wanting her in this position, but considering all the recent events, he says let's let bygones be bygones. Sandy hands over some documents about planning the mayor's funeral and says that Holston left a file for her. She then finds the note from the first episode where Holston wrote, "Double the flowers in front of the mirror." We don't see much with the flowers, but she does figure out the vent, so maybe those two are connected because when you're staring in the mirror, you can see the vent behind you. Marnes accuses and kind of assaults a guy named Frankie for poisoning the mayor. He apparently was guilty of poisoning two people with bad booze, so this most likely isn't related, but Marnes is on an absolute bender. Juliet stops him from killing the guy, and then they go to the cafeteria to have a cup of coffee. Juliet comes clean to Marnes about how she accepted the job and what her relationship was with Holston. They come to a bit of an understanding that if he helps her figure out what happened to George Wilkins, she'll help him figure out what happened to the mayor. Juliet says that once that is done, she'll retire as sheriff and go back down to mechanical. I have to give the writers and showrunners credit here. A lot of shows have characters not telling each other vital information that would make their relationship easier. Sometimes we have to just assume it's happening off camera, but it's good to see two characters put everything they know on the table and come to a mutual understanding. They go to visit Patrick Kennedy, who has a bit of a mouth on him. Not really sure how he connects to the story, but they mention that they want to see his wife, Doris, who apparently had threatened Marnes and the mayor in the past. However, Doris has passed away a while ago. I think he said something like a year ago. So it appears that this is a dead end. Juliet actually asks Marnes directly about the hard drive, but Marnes says that he's never seen it. Rob Sims from Judicial comes to visit Marnes. Marnes has been working behind Juliet's back with Judicial and Bernard to put Billings into the sheriff's position. Marnes is not as gung-ho about replacing Juliet as he was when he made this agreement because now they have that mutual understanding and are going to help each other. He says give her some time and he's sure that she'll leave on her own. Sims takes this better than you'd assume, but I think it was also pretty clear that he's hiding his feelings here. They then cheers and say for the good of the silo. The man who was in the cafeteria earlier, looking at the stars, says his name is Lucas. They talk briefly about Romeo and Juliet, Juliet saying that that's where her name came from, a play they no longer perform. And we do know that they perform plays in the silo because we've seen that in the first episode, Freedom Day. Lucas says that that play might have been written by a rebel. There are many theories that Shakespeare challenged many of the long-held beliefs of society at that time. Among these were the roles of women in society, the existence of divine right, and the codes of morality. Maybe calling him a rebel works. I was also curious if they think the play is something that was written while in the silo, or if it's something that's believed to be from before the rebellion. Either way, the conversation ends quickly from there, and Lucas wishes her a good night. I'm curious if this character is more of a philosopher, considering he's staring at the stars and talks about plays. There always tend to be these characters that are in love with the arts or music or something in post-apocalyptic stories. So I'm wondering if it's that, or if he's actually doing something more scientific by comparing the stars and where they are in the sky. So really excited for what they're going to do with this character. Juliet gets on the walkie-talkie and talks to Martha, and Marnes is overhearing them. She talks about how she's not alone up there anymore, and she might have an ally, meaning Marnes. So it seems like Marnes is going to give her a chance. Martha also says that she has something she could use Juliet's help with, and I suspect, and we get a little video clip of, it's the video camera. So let's hope we get to see what's on that video camera next episode. Back in Holston's apartment, we see that Holston rigged the vent to rattle when it's on. Knowing that Juliet could fix things, he assumed that she would look into it. Holston very cleverly rigged the vent to be just like how Juliet pulled up the hard drive in the first place when she was over the body of water in the silo. And what was hiding in the vent? George Wilkins records. The episode ends with another shocking twist as Marnes is attacked in his apartment by an unnamed assassin. Let me know down in the comments if we've seen this guy before, but I didn't recognize him. After they fight for a bit, the assassin gets the upper hand and is pointing a shotgun at Marnes. You don't see him pull the trigger, and I'm a big believer in no body, no death when it comes to TV shows and movies, but I could see them killing off Marnes. In each one of the first 3 episodes, we've had a major character death. My only main argument for not killing Marnes is if we're going to kill a major character every episode, we're going to run out of characters. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. This one has definitely slowed down from the pace of the first 3 episodes, but it gave us some stuff to think about at the end. Do you think Marnes is dead? Who is Lucas, and what are his plans? And finally, what do you think Martha wanted to show Juliet? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks everyone for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to our channel as we'll be doing Silo recaps every week. Well, that's it for me. Take it easy, YouTube.